The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
With so many people living longer, the fear of outliving your money becomes a reality for many of us. Will I be a financial burden? Will I outlive my money? How will I be remembered? My name is Neil Himmelstein, president of Main Street Planning Group. Please contact me by visiting mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. I will introduce you to strategies that will guarantee you will not outlive your money, that can guarantee you will not be a burden on your loved ones. Through a collaborative approach, we will uncover solutions that offer tax-efficient strategies, lifetime income, and legacy planning, choice, organization, direction, and education. That is the code we stand behind. Contact mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. And listen to me every Friday at 3 p.m. as I host the Main Street Code for Financial Success, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Main Street Code for your financial success. We are here to help advisors, agents, clients all over the United States with their questions regarding insurance, long-term care, disability, fixed annuities, all these different things. We reach out and advisors reach us to help them as a wholesaler and an advisor to clients on to some direction. And some of the things we do, we talk about our code. Our code is choice, organization, direction, and education. And part of that, as we've said in previous programs, I think I may change that C word to communication. Hey, today we are lucky to have with us a terrific matrimonial attorney, Michael Freed. Would you introduce yourself, Michael?
Sure, thank you. And thank you, Neil, for having me. I'm Michael Freed. I am a litigation partner in the matrimonial and family law firm of Berkman, Botker, Newman, and Shine. We have offices in New York City, Westchester, and Long Island.
Fantastic. And how can they get a hold of you if they need to call you?
Our office number is 212-867-9123, or by email at mfreed, F-R-I-E-D, at berkbot.com.
Fantastic. And Michael's a great guy, and he interviewed me on a LinkedIn thing, and he asked me what I would open up as a fast food, I said grilled cheese, which I thought was kind of fun.
So, I love the answer.
Yeah, good. It's because I like to keep things simple, grilled cheese to me, it makes me feel good, and it's simple, and I can make that all over the country. It's easy. I could do that, and I could do all kinds of cheese with that. Anyhow, we talked about our code, which is communication, organization, direction, and education, and how it affects insurance products and planning in general. And when we talk about financial planning, one of the leading things that lead to divorces, leads to matrimonial issues, it leads to business issues. The first thing that it becomes a problem and is necessary and can repair is that word communication. Michael, why don't you tell me what that means when people come to you and one partner doesn't understand the finances, or the other partner is hiding the finances, and where that leads to issues.
Sure, Neil. So many times I have clients that come in that know nothing about finances, and they're lost. And all they know is that their spouse pays their expenses, they pay their bills. But now, when they're looking for a divorce, they want to know, what does my spouse have? What assets do they have? How are they paying these bills? And that's, in the matrimonial world, we do what's called financial discovery. We look at bank statements, we look at tax returns, and we try to figure out what the assets are. We identify them, we classify them as either marital property or separate property, and we're also determining income for purposes of support.
Right. So, but even before that even happens, there's one way to avoid visiting Michael. If you have that, if you do the proper planning and you coordinate as a couple or as a family, when we talk about family plan, we talk about, listen, there are a lot of stresses that go on in life. We have to deal with our parents, and they're getting older, and maybe we have to take care of them. And then all of a sudden our finances are impacted because we're taking care of our parents and not taking care of our kids, or we're trying to take care of our kids, our parents, and our jobs. And all of a sudden we're in this crisis mode because we're not 3 people, we're not 4 people. But you know what? The families are not communicating. The grandkids don't understand why you have to run and take care of your mom and your dad, nor do your children, nor does your job. So you put yourself in a crisis in which we talk about communication up front, and communicating not just with your spouse, but with your family about what's going on. Because when you don't communicate, that's what leads to problems. If you're hiding finances from your spouse, whether it's with huge debt or this and that, and then all of a sudden you find that you're ready to go bankrupt, or you're in a financial crisis and you didn't know anything, and the communication.
Well, I'll tell you this. I had a case where I had one spouse that was gambling, and they lost $500,000.
Oh, my God.
And, we have in our world what's called marital waste. And we have where one spouse is using marital funds that were acquired during the marriage and using it for their own purposes, like gambling losses. And it happens time and time again. Right. Again, no communication.
Right. So then we go to the second letter, which is the O, the organization part. Now, Michael elucidated a little bit before about how organization is important. Organization is extremely important when you're going through a marital situation, but prior to all that, if you have your ducks in a row and you are organized, and we can help you organize. Some of the way we help you organize, by the way, is allow me to be your quarterback. You need to develop a financial team for your insurance, your investments, your legal, and your accounting. And if you don't have a team, let us help you put one together. Because the problem is, you may have the best accountant in the world, the best realtor in the world, the best attorney in the world, the best investment guy in the world, and a great insurance guy. But if they're not all working in sync, you become disorganized, and it could cost you millions of dollars down the road.
And I'll say this, Neil, when a lot of times when I'm going through this, and you're a trusted advisor for me when I'm dealing with support issues, child support, spousal support, when we're trying to resolve a case, I need security for that. I'm representing the spouse that's receiving the support. I want to make sure that in the event that the one spouse predeceases the other, there's security in the form of life insurance, and that it covers it throughout the term, either of the spousal support or for the child support.
Absolutely. So when a breakup occurs, whether it's a divorce, a separation, or a marital thing, the assets get divided by whatever percentage. I guess it's 50% in New York typically, but not always.
Well, Neil, we're an equitable distribution state. Equitable doesn't always mean equal. It's what's fair. And in most situations, you have a 50-50, except when you're dealing with a professional practice or a business. It may not go 50-50 in that respect. You base it on the other spouse's direct and indirect contributions.
Right. So that's important. So if one spouse has a big retirement program and the other spouse doesn't, that has to be divided up and has to be done properly so that there's not an adverse taxation. I had a situation where a woman, and actually I spoke to her yesterday, good client of ours, and her husband had 5 insurance contracts on himself, big ones, okay, loans all over the place. And she had a big insurance contract on herself, and the divorce attorneys, marital attorneys, wasn't Michael, unfortunately, but whatever, said, cash all these policies in, and it's done. You're the owner of all these policies. Well, she didn't know about it, but they all had these big loans on it, and she cashed them all in. She would have gotten maybe a couple $100,000, but she would have gotten a huge tax bill because of all these loans. But by saving them and not cashing them in, she's going to recoup millions of dollars.
That happens a lot in these cases. And what we try to do is we'll balance the value, let's say the cash surrender value of a policy against another asset. So we don't have to surrender that policy and have tax consequences.
But that's when you have to review these policies. That's what we do. So we review them. And in her situation, her husband probably has a 5-year life expectancy. It doesn't have a long life expectancy, so we can keep these policies in force and renegotiate the loans. But her policy, she really needed, now after the divorce, she needed some kind of long-term care protection. Her policy wasn't providing it. We were able to use the cash from her policy not only to protect her life insurance for her children, but in addition, protect her for long-term care, which, as you know, is a huge, huge thing. You're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success, and I'm with Michael Fried, and we're going to be back in just a minute. If you need to reach me, I'm at 631-647-4694. Michael, how they reach you?
212-867-9123.
You can always email me or look at my website, themainstreetcode.com. Thank you. Right back. Welcome back. You've been listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I can always be reached for questions or areas you'd like me to cover at 631-647-4694. And we have a special guest, Mr. Michael Fried, who's a marital attorney who does all kinds of... Michael, I know you do marital things. Tell me what that entails.
What it entails is we handle all aspects of divorce in terms of custody, child support, spousal support, equitable distribution. We do prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements, and orders of protection.
Well, that's a lot of stuff. Well, you got a lot of knowledge there that quite great. So, we talk about our code and we talk about communication, and we spoke quite a bit about that early on, about pre-communication and post-communication. We talk about organization, how important it is to organize your assets. And right after divorce, or right when you're separating, the spouse that doesn't have the financial background or knowledge or knows what everything, all of a sudden is forced into organizing their assets, and we help in doing that, and Michael helps in doing that, not only finding where they are, but also determining what they are and what's the best use for those assets. How do I plan? Now, I haven't done any planning, I haven't paid any bills. All of a sudden, I have a house to take care of, I have kids in school, whatever the situation is, and that's a huge burden. Don't take it all on yourself. Reach out to professionals to help you. So Michael will assist you in helping you organize them, but then once everything is put in order and you got everything listed out, you still want to say, okay, how do I maximize those things? How do I optimize my assets? How do I protect my assets? How do I now I own the company of me and my family. How is my company going to run in the future without that other partner who also needs advice afterwards, by the way? They may think they know everything. They've been paying all the bills, but obviously a lot of times not correctly, which is why the divorce happens to begin with. So they need to then get organized, and then they need direction, which is our third letter on the code. Direction. What to do now that I have everything in order. Tell me a little bit about that. So
in the matrimonial world, the most important document that we prepare is what's called a statement of net worth. And it includes your monthly expenses from the mortgage down to dog food. What's your budget? What are your needs? And then we have assets and liabilities. We figure out everything. We identify everything. So the most important part of the expenses is, okay, I know I'm getting divorced. These are my needs. Maybe it's $10,000 a month, but I only make $5,000 net after taxes. What am I going to do? How am I going to make up that other money? And when I'm representing the non-moneyed spouse, I'm looking at child support. I'm looking at spousal support and figuring out what those needs are. And in the same vein, when I'm looking at the assets, if I'm seeing that my client's going to get a certain amount of money in a lump sum, well, that's going to be invested. Maybe it's invested at 5%. And that income there, I'm going to add that to that shortfall and say, including, okay, here's her net income, here's her income from her investments. What is the shortfall? And that's what I'm looking for. And I'm not only looking for it at the time of the divorce, I'm looking 5-10 years from now. And that's when I need you as our trusted advisor to tell me how I can structure in terms of life insurance, annuities. What do I need to help my clients? That's where you come in, Neil.
Right. Well, I mean, this is why you want a team of people to help you, because in it by itself, Michael's got a lot of work to do. And he can't do it by himself. I can't do my job by myself. Nobody can do their job by themselves, but you need a coordination of effort to give you that direction to take you to that next step. And it's all part of the E word, which is education. And education is humongous. And you know what? Education goes on every day till we're in the grave. We're learning if we're not learning, you might as well just lay there in your bed and put the covers over your head, because education changes and is important. A lot of things go into education. There's legal laws. They're changing every single day. The world is changing every day. There's wars. There's COVID. There's crime. There's this and that. And speaking of COVID, I bet you've been extremely busy during COVID.
Things have been crazy since COVID's come, and it's happened in the financial aspects, but most importantly, even in custody, where a party will take a child to another, let's say out to the suburbs from the city, and then they'll decide, I think I'm going to stay here. Well, wait a second. The house is, the apartment's in the city, you're out on the island, and I can't tell you how many times I ended up in court dealing with this issue, and the courts are saying, look, we're not going to play God here. And if there's an agreement that the child lives in New York City, the child's going back to New York City.
Wow. That's crazy. But I noticed during COVID, one of the big things that happened, and I'm going backwards. Going back to communication. You know, something happened to me in the last 10 years is I became an empty nester. Now, my communication with my wife mostly surrounded my kids.
Right.
All of a sudden, my kids are gone. Now what are we going to talk about? And then all of a sudden, there's a whole new dimension. We have to learn each other once again. And these are things you want to be cognizant of when you're building your lives together, is how are you going to communicate and move forward? And this has led to, now all of a sudden, you take COVID, now I'm working from home. So now I'm 24/7 with my wife. That's a big difference than prior.
And I'll say that I just became an empty nester too, and it's an adjustment. And
right.
Working from home was, my wife was going to work and I wasn't. And when she would come home, she's like, "You're still here," and it's not easy. But
it's huge. My wife got pissed off at me when I called the kitchen the break room, because that's her room. You know, she doesn't like that very much. But you know what? All of a sudden, our communication had to change. And it happened to everybody. I know people that we do business, and Michael and I are on a networking group together. Mm-hmm. And, they have young kids. And all of a sudden, they had to stay home and homeschool their kids while running their business. And boy, did that change things. It doesn't just change the kid. Forget about the impact on the kids, but the impact on relationships, at home relationships, when whether one person's used to being home all day and the other person isn't, or we're both being home, all that plays into and becomes a marital issue at some point, and needs to be worked out and thought about. So all these communication skills, if there's one word of the day, it's communication between spouses, between family members, between duties, between roles, between finances. All this is very, very important, and I can't stress it enough. Listen, if it were up to me, you'd never need Michael. That would be, in an altruistic world, I'd like to help you not need Michael. But you know what? If you need somebody, Michael's the guy. That's the key.
Well, It's so true in terms of communication. I can't tell you this during the COVID, that these communication issues unfortunately ended up in domestic abuse. And there was such a rise in domestic abuse cases going for orders of protection. I was July 4th of 2020 trying to celebrate with my family, but ended up dealing with a domestic issue and having to get a criminal attorney for my client because he was arrested.
Oh boy!
Everything just snowballed.
Everything snowballed. So again, you're listening to the Main Street Code for your financial success. And again, if you ever need to reach out to me, if you have any questions, you want me to cover something on air or personality, whatever, call me at 631-647-4694 or visit me on my website, themainstreetcode.com. And Michael Freed, how can they get a hold of you?
At 212-867-9123 or by email mfreed@burkebot.com.
Fantastic, Michael. What a great guest and what a great time. And listen, it's supposed to be gorgeous this weekend like it was last weekend. So go out and enjoy, get out in that fresh air, and be safe, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.